Hi, my name is Nick Thomas. Today I'll be talking about ancient Rome history.
And my name is Kenneth Carter, and I'll be talking about social classes.
Religion played a very important role in daily life of ancient Rome and Romans. Roman religion was centered around gods, and explanations for events usually involved the gods some way or another. The Romans believed that gods controlled their lives, and as a result, spent a great deal of time worshiping them. The most important god was Jupiter. He was the king of gods. He ruled his wife Juno, the goddess of the sky. After the region of Emperor August, the emperor was also considered to be a god. He was worshipped on special occasions. Each god had a special festival day, which was usually a public holiday. The holiday gave people the opportunity to visit the temple for whichever god was being celebrated. At this temple, priests would sacrifice animals and offer them to gods. Temples to worship the gods were built throughout the Roman Empire. Temples usually always followed the same building pattern. The roof was triangle-shaped and supported by great pillars. Steps led up to the main doorway, usually built behind the pillars. The inside of the temple would have been very well decorated, and there would have been a statue of the god in it. There would also have been an altar where priests would have served the gods and made sacrifices. People called augurs could also be found in the temples. These people used the entrails of the dead animals to protect the future. The Romans took these predictions very seriously, and few ignored the advice of an augur. Each family home would have also had a small altar and shrine. The Romans had personal household gods or spirits called lairs, which were worshipped every day at home. The shrine contained statues of lairs, and the head of the household led family prayers around the shrine each day. The service was considered so important that family slaves were also invited. It is believed that Romans were more keen to please their lairs than the public gods such as Jupiter. Now to you, Kenneth, for social classes.
Thank you for that marvelous introduction. Rome's social class was a hierarchical and class-conscious society, but there was a possibility of mobility between most of the classes. The class described below surpassed the old patrician and plebeian distinctions through the certain elements of dress, religious positions, and rituals which were still reserved for patricians. There was a large gulf between the wealthy upper class and the lower class. And the poor and lower class through still was possible, although quite difficult to move upwards by acquiring sufficient wealth. The senatorial class was the basis for this class was political. It included all men who served in the Senate, and by the extension of their families, the class was dominated by the noble families whose ancestors included at least one consul. The first man in his family to be elected consul, thus qualifying his family for noble status, was called the new man. Although his term was used in varying senses, it could refer to the equestrian who was the first in the family to be elected in political office and thus joined the senatorial class, or a man from the council. Women, although membership in these classes was dominated by the same families over many generations, the classes themselves were defined according to male activity rather than birth. Women's places in these classes were therefore somewhat problematic. Belonging to one of these upper classes had sufficient consequences from Roman. Besides, prestige and social class determined on one's economical and political opportunities as well as legal rights. Benefits and penalties, Rome had nothing comparable in our middle classes. The gulf between these two upper classes and lower classes was much larger than it is now. However, as long as one's freedom, Roman citizen was born at least in slight possibility of moving to the equestrian class through the equestrian of wealth. Entry into the senatorial class, even with wealthy equestrians, was extremely difficult since the equestrians, in centuries, the numbers of the families was monopolized in the class. Commons. Other all free-born Roman citizens, especially marked the dress for the male citizens, was the toga. All Roman citizens had the right to contract a legal marriage, and Roman citizens beget legitimate marriage, who themselves were Roman citizens. Freed people, men and women who had been slaves themselves, had bought freedom